Hey, what's up? Joe Carabase here. Welcome to That Was Yesterday. On today's episode, I am sharing a recording from a live talk I did back in January on how to eat, to lose, and to never look back. So I'm taking the core principles that are found in the Never Look Back physical book that we give to all of our patients and going over some major talking points. So obviously we're not going to discuss all of the details and the secrets in that book. There's just not enough time for that in one live talk or episode. However, we are talking about a philosophy that I use that's called good, better, and best. And so basically inside of the Never Look Back blueprint, there's different levels of which you can start depending on where you're at, depending on what your commitment level. Those levels are good. So that's just like starting off, right? You're just getting started, or maybe you've been inconsistent over the last 6 months or so. You're kind of been doing some good stuff here and there, but really looking to find some consistency. That would be the good levels as to where you're going to start. The quote unquote better level is the next step up from that, where we're tightening up a few things, where this is really for people who have been following a program consistently over the last 6 months or so, but just need to make some tweaks. And then from there, the best, right? So this is like highest level, like people who have been in it to win it, who are really looking to lose that last bit of excess, who have been committed for a long period of time, who are doing a lot of good things right, who just need to make some final tweaks. So the level 1, 2, and 3 is set up this way because one of the biggest mistakes people make when transforming their body, or attempting to anyway, is they try to do too much at once. And we like to focus on hitting those low-hanging fruits. For instance, as you'll hear, meal prep, everybody knows is a good thing to do, but meal prep isn't until the best level in our program, because while it is a good thing to do, it's very time consuming, right? It takes a lot of energy and time. And so the different items, the recommendations that we offer under that in the levels below it are things that are higher yielding, low hanging fruits for you to start with. And so once you dial in the recommendations at each level, you go on to the next level. And once you dial those in, you go on to the next level. And one thing I want to make to be very clear is that no matter what level you're on, and by the way, you can oscillate up and down. For instance, you might start with a good level and you might work your way all the way up to the best level. But then, you might have maybe it's a summertime, you have a lot of fun events coming up, and you might find yourself taking a step back a little bit, but focusing just on that first level. And that's okay to do, right? The key is for you to start where you're at, do your very best, and to realize there's never a point in time where you need to be all or nothing. We talk a lot about this inside the plan, but it's not about being perfect. This is not a diet. This is a lifestyle way of eating. And so I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I want you to take a few action items away from it. What are 1 to 3 things that you can start applying right away? Focus on those and dial those in, and then move on to some more. If you found any value in this episode, please share with friends. We'd really appreciate it. Enjoy. So we are going to be at about 60 minutes. Do my best to be within that. So there's not a whole lot of slides here, but a lot of great content. So without further ado, we are going to get started. So today we are talking about how to create a healthy lifestyle eating plan that you can easily follow. Easily follow is the most important thing. You see, a big problem that we see that happens a lot when we're looking to get started with any sort of plan is that there is the tendency, the desire, the urge, the need to feel like you have to do everything all at once. And that can lead us down the pipe of making decisions and getting involved in certain diets and programs that are very intense and that require a lot and that are a massive deviation and gap from the things that we are currently doing or not doing. And so when you try to do all of that stuff all at once, it tends to be problematic and short-lived. And a few things before we get into the content of what you should do, some things that I want to make you aware about are things that perhaps you should not do or at least be aware of. This time of year, especially with New Year's resolution around the corner, it's right here. This is a time of year where we set really big goals, which is a good thing. Like, it's really good to have a goal. It gives you a North Star to work towards. However, that can cause us to make some of these shorter term decisions that can get us involved in programs that might be a little bit too intense. And the most important thing to realize is that you're human, like all of us. And motivation will wear off. It will wean. And when it does, you want to be in a place where you have something you can continue to do, something that you can easily get back on track with. And when we tend to go for programs that are complete deviations away from what we're used to with the lifestyle that we're used to, it tends to be all or nothing. And so whenever that motivation does in fact wear, then we go back to what it was that we were doing before, which probably got us to the place that made us sort of frustrated, overwhelmed, unhappy in the first place. And so to alleviate all of that, it's best to think more longer term focused when it comes to the types of decisions that you can make and the habits that you can start to adapt. And so today we're going to get into a process that is taken directly from my new book, my new program that is coming out. So you can kind of see it there. But basically, it's a 10-week blueprint to lose and to never look back. That is the theme. And so this is the 5th edition of said program. And so every single edition, which I've been updating every quarter, basically, I'm just building upon what has worked really well, clarifying some of the things that were maybe sticking points for some, and just making it better, making it tighter. And so the big thing about the never look back element, which we're not going to dive into tonight, but I do think it's worth mentioning and something I want you to think about, is weight loss is not a logical problem. It's an emotional problem. So yes, eating and nutrition, and then of course exercise and holistic interventions like we do here with our holistic body fat spot reduction in our pod. These things are important and they're vital, and you need to do some capacity and some mix of all of them. However, if you do not address the underlying issues that either self-sabotage you whenever you're making progress or make you feel like you're never where you can be happy, where you can be content, these are internal things that need to be addressed. So anytime there are regular negative patterns in our life, whether mentally, internally, or externally by what we're doing or not doing that is causing us to be unhappy with where we're at, it's an internal game. So I would highly, highly encourage you to just be open to that fact. You don't have to do anything different right now. And we can talk about some strategies if you want during a Q&A, but I know this is not about that particular topic tonight, but I would plant in your head that is the most important part, especially, as a certified hypnotist, the work that we've been doing with people, getting underneath into the lower levels, into the shadows to help people heal what's there has really shortcut the process in an incredible way. And so I know it seems scary and kind of boring and whatever it might feel like to you to think about doing internal work, but I can promise you this, again, weight loss is not a logical problem, it's an emotional problem. So eating and nutrition and exercise in of itself is not going to solve it long term. And so I'm all about consistency, and especially if you're a woman over 50, consistency is even more important because you are either have been through menopause or you are going through menopause. And as you know, if you are a woman in menopause who have gone through it, whatever's worked up to that point will not work to the same extent that it once did. Metabolism slows down. Things just don't work in the same way. It's harder and harder and harder to lose, which means it's harder and harder on your body to lose a lot of weight, gain it back, lose some, gain back more. And that's really how it goes with the yo-yos, losing some, but gaining back a net positive, which you don't want, right? And again, that's what we're going to be talking about today, is how to not have to yo-yo. But a big part of that in the discussion tonight is the internal part. So I just wanted to sort of plant that seed. So that being said, let's move ahead here. So this is sort of the lay of the land, all right? So the idea is to start where you're at. So there are 3 levels to where you can start where you're at. Level 1, the base of the pyramid, is to get started. Level 2 is to get unstuck. Level 3 is to get your best self, to level up. So a little bit about each of these levels. Level 1, get started. That's a foundation. So like if you're, I would say 20 pounds or more overweight, not where you want to be, if you're kind of coming off the holidays, looking to get into a plan, looking to get started into a routine, if you have not been consistent with your exercise or a way of eating for over 6 months, then start on level 1 and nothing else. And we're going to get into what that looks like. All right. But it's the base of the pyramid because it's the foundation. It's the most important piece, because if you don't have the foundation, then everything else is going to crackle and shatter that is above it. Think about it like if you were building a house, and rather than spending time thinking about the foundation, the concrete foundation, and the land of which you are building that foundation on, but instead you kind of just rush through it, make quick decisions, start building the house anyway on a cracked foundation, and then you really get excited and focus on the aesthetics, maybe the master bathroom or the closet. Well, at some point that house is going to crumble, right? Cracked foundations is not going to last long. And I know that's a bit of an exaggeration, but that is what happens when it comes to nutrition. We hear someone talk about what they're doing with keto, or we see something on Instagram about someone's doing XYZ, or you hear somebody talking in a coffee shop. A little while ago, I heard a few years back, I heard somebody talking about, they were giving information about what a keto diet is and how the friends should do the keto diet. And what they were describing was not even keto. It was like a completely different thing. It was actually paleo. The X's and O's of those two eating plans we don't need to dive into. But the point is that it's very easy to hear something, think you should do that thing, and get misinformation, bad information, start doing the thing, and end up even more frustrated and further away from your goals. So it's best just to simplify. If it doesn't make sense to you, then it doesn't make sense, right? And if it's not something you can't see yourself doing for a long period of time, like not 21 days, not 6 months, then I highly would suggest to think twice. If it is something, like a lot of these plans out there, that encourage you not to exercise when you're going through it, I would stay away. Because if your energy is going to be so low that you should not exercise when you're trying to get healthy, I mean, just think about that. Step back for a second and think about that. You're trying to get healthy, but you're told not to exercise. Those two things don't ring true. There's an issue there. Part of getting healthy is movement. And look, I get some people have issues of which that would preclude you from exercising. I totally get that. Like we got a ton of people who use our pod for weight loss who can't or don't have the time to exercise. Ideally, though, we want everybody working in that direction. And by the way, we also have people with the most intense autoimmune diseases, from fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, you name it, who are able to do levels of exercise. So I just encourage you to know that exercise is an important part of all this, even though we're not talking about it tonight. But again, just think about when you're starting a plan, it's got to make sense for you and just be something that you think you can follow. And so level 1. Level 2 is getting unstuck. So maybe for the last 6 months or so, you've been consistently exercising. You've been, oscillating back and forth between eating clean, not eating clean, but just feeling like you're not able to lose that last 10 pounds, or not seeing the scale budge if that's your measurement, and not feeling like your effort is taking you to where you want to go. And then finally, level 3 is get to your best self. This is just about optimization. This is creating, the details of your master closet, right? Of all, like going back to that house example, it's the shutters on your windows. It's doing the things that are going to look really good and can make you feel really good every time you see them, but aren't important at all if you are very far from your goals. And so the progression is necessary. And that is what we're going to go over today in a very simple way, but enough for you to have tangible tips that you can apply right away, like literally starting tonight. And 2 more things about this pyramid before we get into the actual content of what to do. Number 1 is a progression, right? The arrow is pointing up. In other words, if you're starting off in ground 1, level 1, well, when you get to level 2, you're not forgetting what you did in level 1, right? You want to build upon the habits that you started in level 1 when you do to level 2. And you'll see everything's laid out in such a way, but you want to make sure that you're just building upon the habits. Same thing from level 2 to level 3, all right? And by the way, this ain't gonna be about being perfect. It's not at all. Like, this is with the intention that you will not be perfect, because I don't know if you know this by yet, but you're imperfect. You are a messy human, right? And I am not on a soapbox. I am also imperfect and a messy human, as is everybody else who has ever lived. So the idea that you should follow anything 100% is just completely false and incorrect right from the get. So if you are told to follow a plan that is so far away from what your lifestyle is, I can assure you right now, it's not going to end well, because you're not a robot, right? You're a human with individual needs, with a lot of different things going on, and you need a plan that's going to fit your lifestyle, which is what we're going to talk about tonight. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention when it comes to the pyramid here is that So many of us were brought up and taught about the food pyramid. And the food pyramid, if you can remember that, well, the foundation of the food pyramid is 6 to 11 servings of rice and cereal per day. So, I mean, we can get into why that is. Like, it is not a conspiracy. It's pretty straightforward that there's a lot to do with commodity sales, pushing grains and all that sort of stuff. Because we knew then it wasn't healthy for you. But the bottom line is this. We don't even get into all that crazy stuff. But I can tell you this. Most people were never taught how to eat healthy. And so I share that because I find in my work, a lot of people hold a lot of shame and guilt for where they're at. And look, now more than ever, it's very confusing when it comes to what to eat and how you should eat. Because not only were you never taught how to do so, there is an overabundance of information all over the internet, what your friends are talking about in coffee shops, and everywhere else in between. So much so it can create paralysis by overanalysis because you're thinking about, what do I do? Is this right for me? What's the best foods to eat? Should I eat this? Should I not eat that? By the way, food manufacturers are spending billions of dollars to not just create marketing that's going to suck you in and get you to eat things that are not that healthy but have a high profit margin. But these foods are designed in a way, when you hear the term genetically modified, that's not just to save costs. That's not just for mass production. They're genetically modified so that they live in your gut, and the bacteria lives in your gut, which creates the need, the urge, the craving, if you want to call it that, to consume more of that. AKA, it builds some level, I wouldn't say addiction, but some level of making you feel like you need to have the thing or you want more of the thing. That's why it's really hard to put down a bag of chips or drinking something that's really sweet or eating something that's really sweet, because it was designed for it to be hard to put down. All right. And by the way, when you eat all that, you can eat a bag of chips and not feel full. Why is that? Well, because there's no nutrients, or empty, right? So all this to say, it's okay if you were never taught about eating clean, but I can give you a great layout, which I will tonight. This stuff works. I didn't make this stuff up. I've been coaching for almost 20 years, over thousands of people of all, like, busy people who weren't busy, who thought they were busy, people who are really, really out of shape, people who are in really, really good shape, and everywhere in between. This stuff works. However, it will only work to the extent that we can have it fit your life. And if we can't have it fit your lifestyle, then it ain't going to work long term. So as you're looking at this, look at it with the openness to think, how can I apply this for me? And know that part of this journey isn't just following what's on here or following what's in the book that's coming out. It is you learning. And part of learning is messing up. Part of learning is asking questions. Part of learning is looking at ingredients and food labels. That's a necessary part in order for you to keep the weight off long term. It's just having a great understanding. And I can tell you this, you probably know more than you think you know. All right. So with that said, let's dive in here. So a good place to start. So this is our foundation here. These are 5 habits of which I'm going to go over. If you are at that base pyramid, if you are just getting started, just getting back into the swing of things, these are the things that you want to focus on. And so you'll notice there are 5 items here. This does not mean that you need to do everything all at once. I always recommend start with 3 to 5 changes at once. But it also means that focus on this, but let whatever you're doing outside of it happen. In other words, if you're having your wine, if you're having your soda, if you're eating processed foods, if you're whatever you're doing, I'm not saying those are good things that you should do that are going to help you get in the best shape. I'm simply saying it is way easier to add habits than it is to just completely get rid of habits. There's something psychological that happens when you tell yourself you can't have something that it makes you want it more. So again, all of those things I just mentioned will be addressed, and those are things that I believe should be a part of your lifestyle. But again, just focus on adding a few of these items in. And then as you go up the pyramid, you can worry about other things. So first and foremost, start drinking more water. I know that's not sexy. I know you've heard that before. However, are you drinking enough water? Look, ideally, we'd like you to have half your body weight in ounces of water per day. I realize that might sound like a lot, depending on where you're coming at. And that's okay, as she drinks more water. But start drinking more. Look, a few things you should know about water. One is it is the fuel for your lymphatic system. Your lymphatic system is how you process out the excess out of your body. So if you don't have enough water in your system, that will not be running smoothly, number one. Number two, water indirectly affects energy. So it indirectly affects your metabolism, your digestion, your elimination. If you don't have enough water, those things are going to slow down. You don't want that. Number three, when you are not drinking enough water, you will have more hunger symptoms than the average person, making it very, very hard when you are trying to get onto a new path to stay on the path. And so keep this in mind as you're moving forward. Water is something that we want you to drink more of. You don't need to go from 0 to 60. But right now, let's just say if you're having, whatever you're having right now, make it a small goal to have one more bottle per day. As you start doing that and you feel good with it, add another bottle per day and slowly inch your way up until you get to about half your body weight in ounces of water per day. And one last tip with water. Two, because I hear this a lot from people. Water can be really hard to eat. It is hard to eat because you can't eat it. But it can be really hard to drink. So the best way to start your water intake is the night before. How do you do that? Well, before bed, fill up your water bottle, put it next to your bed so that when you wake up, before anything else, drink that water and then keep it with you, that water bottle with you. And I would recommend a sustainable water bottle, BPA free, so that you can have with you throughout. Because if you have a water bottle with you, you will be more likely to drink the water and your water intake will increase. And so if you don't have a water bottle, get a water bottle, fill it up the night before, and then the morning of, start your day by drinking more water before your coffee, by the way. When you sleep, your body is recovering. We all wake up to a degree of dehydration. The last thing you want to do is start your day with strictly coffee. Trust me, I got 2 young babies, and I'm getting up with them every other night. I understand lack of sleep. That being said, and I love my coffee in the morning. But before that, water, all right? Then set an alarm throughout the day. So if your bottle is 32 ounces and you need to drink about 90 ounces, well, set an alarm 3 times throughout the day, just as a trigger, as a signal, something to remind you, ooh, that's a goal I got to have water by, all right? And the other thing you can do with water, I know I said 2 things, but more is coming out as I just recall conversations that I have with people, is this. If you are somebody who is a teacher, who is a nurse, who is somebody who is on your feet, who cannot just stop what they're doing and drink water or stop what you're doing and just go pee, then you got to front load and back load your water intake. What that means is you would drink a good amount of water before you ever get into work, like before you leave your house, on your way to work, with lunch, or whenever you get the chance to eat, and then on your way home. Those would be your moments to drink the bulk of your water. Then anything in between is bonus, all right? The last thing I will say about water, and I promise this is the last thing I'll say about water, we'll see, is if you don't like the taste of water, that's okay, all right? But let's not fool yourself. Crystal Light, those drops, or whatever else is marketed to make your water taste better, and that have 0 calories and 0 sugar. Nothing in life is that sweet without sugar. It's just impossible. And it blows my mind how fruit is villainized in such a way that people are obsessed over the amount of grams of sugar in an apple and yet will drink Crystal Light every day. Trust me, you are way better with that 16 grams of carbs in an apple than you are drinking Crystal Light every day. Anytime you consume sugar, you want it to be a part of what you're eating naturally. Sugar is naturally in an apple. Our bodies know how to digest it. They've known how to digest it since that's how fruit is part of our evolution. And whenever you consume fruit, you have fiber in addition to sugar, which helps your body process it. Whereas if you just have regular sugar, it's a way different game, way different conversation. And something like Crystal Light or anything else that enhances your water without calories, that tastes really good, that was artificially sweetened. What does that mean? Well, your body doesn't know how to process it. It's no surprise why there is an uptick in gut health as there is an increase in our artificial sweeteners that we consume. And as I'm talking about America. Because what happens is when your body doesn't know how to process something, it lives in your gut. It can inflame your stomach lining. It can cause a lot of issues, right? And again, this could be a whole nother talk. Just know this, that processed sugar comes with a cost. It may not be sugar intake on a label. And it may not be calories, but it will affect you in a negative way. I can promise you that. And there's a lot of other like longer term implications you might want to think about too. But I can tell you right now, gut health is a very big issue that is oftentimes happening as a result of too much artificial sweeteners. And so that being said, you're like, well, Joe, I don't like the taste of water. All right, well, infuse it. All right, buy an infuser. You can get one on Amazon where you can put in cucumbers, you can put in herbs, you can put in fresh fruit. But my favorite way to go about this is what we did for our daughter to get her to start drinking more water, was take frozen fruit and put it in the infuser. Because from the frozen fruit, you're going to get the natural sugars that are going to flavor the water. And it's going to give you the idea of kind of like a juice, although it's not juice, it's just naturally sweetened water. So if you don't like the taste of water, infuse it with something, all right? So next thing is add 20 grams of collagen to a morning coffee, tea, or shake. I recommend adding the collagen to a coffee or tea hot if you drink coffee or tea, because it's what's called a habit stack. I can promise you, I would guess, nobody here has a hard time drinking their coffee. Like, it's something you figure out to do. No matter how busy you are, you drink that coffee, right? And no judgment. I do it myself. However, habit stack is when you're already doing something, all you have to do is layer in another habit. And so most women, and I say most, I would say 98% of the women I've worked with, and that's a lot, under intake protein. Even the women who tell me they eat a lot of protein, still only probably, in a lot of cases, half of what they should intake. Why is that important? Well, something called sarcopenia happens. It happens throughout life, but it really accelerates when you hit 40. And unfortunately, if you're a woman, it accelerates even faster, especially when menopause hits. What is that? The natural degeneration of muscle tissue over time. Why is that important? Well, the more muscle you lose, the less metabolically active you become. The more muscle you lose, inversely related to fat, the more fat you will gain. And so those are big issues as they are. But let's go dive deeper. A lot of times, women especially will complain of fatigue. Well, think about it like this. If you are under eating total calories, which a lot of these weight loss diets have out there, they have you on some crazy amount of diets. By the way, if you're on a diet plan that is prescribing their own brand of supplement so that you can poop, that's a big problem. That's a big problem right there. That's a natural process your body should be able to do, right? We're going to need about 35 grams of 40, if you're a woman, 45 grams of fiber per day. But if you're not able to poop on your own because of the diet that you're following, or you have constipation or something like that, you might want to second guess what it is that you're doing. That's not good. That is not good. And by the way, those weight loss companies are more supplement companies than they are weight loss companies. Because if you ever follow any of those programs, from Optivia to Medi Weight Loss or anything in between like that, what do? They want to keep you in their ecosystem. You got to utilize their products. You got to drink their products. You got to eat their products. You got to take their shakes, take their shots. Why? Because you keep spending within that. So it is what it is. But just to say, we want you pooping regularly. All right? All that to say that. Anyway, the fatigue thing, that can happen when you don't have enough protein, because you're taking in less calories, you're losing muscle, your body's working really hard, but it doesn't have the support of the muscle. So, and that's not the only reason why fatigue can happen, but it is a reason, all right? And then, of course, aesthetically. If you want, I've never met a woman who doesn't want to be lean and toned. Almost everybody I would ever talk to wants in some capacity to be those things. You cannot be those things if your muscle is significantly dropping. So, last part of the muscle that you want to consider is just overall function, especially as you age. Losing balance, losing the ability to do simple tasks. That's going to happen at an accelerated rate if you don't have enough protein. So protein, in a sense, reverses the aging process. And collagen in particular reverses the aging process because it helps with so many things that help you live a more youthful life. Helps with muscle, helps with skin, helps with hair, helps with nails, so on and so forth. Now, collagen powder is different from collagen pills. So not to say that collagen capsules are not beneficial, but they aren't going to have 20 grams of protein in them, right? And a lot of them have you take like 8 pills, which is a lot to take of anything. So collagen powder, though, look for about 20 grams. For those of our people who come to Define, we have some brands that we like here. Globally, Vital Proteins is a good brand. You've probably seen that before, but nonetheless, add it to your shake to help you get enough protein intake without really knowing. Next, add a protein shake per day, one protein shake per day. So this is different from your collagen. When I say protein shake, I'm referring to whey protein, egg white protein. You could do casein protein, less likely, or it could also be vegan protein. Again, as a way, as an insurance policy to take in more protein. Very, very important, as I've mentioned. Look for 20 to 25 grams per shake, all right? Now, I'm gonna go back to the protein shake and a collagen in a moment here. The next thing, intermittent fast for 12 to 16 hours. Now, intermittent fasting is something that is one of those things that you're starting to hear, well, you're hearing a lot about, right? You hear it on TV, you hear friends talking about it, you see it online. It's in. Well, I can tell you, I've been doing intermittent fasting, not just personally, but with patients, with clients, for over a decade now. I've experimented a lot of different ways to go about it. The main problem people have in the intermittent fast is that they are so fixated on getting to that 16-hour mark because experts tell you have to get there or there's no point, that they overthink. They focus so much on it that their cortisol, their stress increases because they're thinking about food so much and they want to just get to that 60. That affects your productivity. But more than anything, it affects your cortisol. And especially as a woman, cortisol is very bad for the waistline. And so you gotta be very mindful of your cortisol intake. And so if we're gonna intermittent fast to lose fat, right? To get healthier, well, why would we wanna do that, anything like that, that's going to directly increase our cortisol and almost impact our ability to lose off our waistline? Doesn't make sense, right? So here's how we do our intermittent fasting. Again, there would be fasting purists out there who will be like, oh, that's not intermittent fasting. I don't give a shit what they say. I just know what works. And that's what I focus on. The way we do our intermittent fasting is that we allow the water, of course. We allow the collagen. We allow the protein shake inside your fasting hours, which would be the 12 to 16 hours. So what that means, when you hear 12 to 16 hour fast, that means for 12 to 16 hours, you are not eating. You're not drinking things outside of what's included inside of your fast. So for us, you would basically do 12 to 16 hours from dinner. So let's just say, for easy math, you ate at 7 o'clock last night, and you did 16 hours, you would not eat the next day until 11 a.m., all right? Now, in that 16 hours, a lot of it's sleep, but then before and after it, for our sake, ours is more of a food fast, but we don't want you drinking a lot of calories either, just minimal. The collagen in your coffee or tea, the protein shake with water about an hour after, and then when your 12 or 16 hours is up, you would then have your meal to break your fast with. Now, fasting purists might say, well, that's not fasting because you're getting some calories there. Well, it's very minimal calories. And by the way, like we talked about earlier, most people are, especially women, are under intaking. They're not taking in enough protein. And so another problem with intermittent fasting is that if you are doing a 16-hour fast, that means you have an 8-hour feeding window. And inside of the 8-hour feeding window, it's very hard to eat the amount of nutrition that your body needs to get to the goals that you want. Most people struggle doing that in 24 hours. So expecting to do that in 8 hours is a challenge, and especially your protein goal. Now, that's not just the case for a woman who's trying to lose 20 pounds. That's the same for a male like myself who's 220 pounds looking to keep my muscle. I have to keep my protein intake up. I intermittent fast. It's very hard to have 220 grams of protein in 8 hours, all right? And so again, if you're not getting enough nutrients, then the intermittent fasting thing may not be the best thing for you. It has to make sense. And so why intermittent fasting? Well, yes, it helps your body burn more fat, right? We can get into the science of it all, but more than anything, simply put, it helps your body burn more fat. Because if you're not taking in food, your body is going to go into what might otherwise be stored as fat, to use that as energy. Now, when it comes to intermittent fasting, one of the more, I'd say, underrated benefits is that it rests your internal organs. It rests what you use in your digestion system to process food. Why is that important? Well, you can eat chicken and broccoli all day, every day, but that's going to require a lot out of your body. And that puts a lot of stress on your organs. When do your organs otherwise get a time to rest other than when you sleep? They really don't. And so what intermittent fasting does is it gives your body a period of time in which no food is getting broken down. So your system can rest. And through rest, like anything else, it gets more efficient. So very important for you to think about. And intermittent fasting has been linked to a lot of other benefits for aging and brain as you move forward. Believe it or not, mental clarity. You don't realize how much energy your body actually requires to break down food, which can be a good thing when it's done in the right way. But nonetheless, highly recommend 12 to 16 hours. Start with 12 hours, all right? So if you've never done intermittent fasting before, start with 12 hours. And then as you feel more comfortable with it, go to 14, then go to 16. If you have tried intermittent fasting before, the traditional way, if you will, where there's nothing but water, maybe some people say don't even have water, which is ludicrous, but whatever. Say if you've done another method of intermittent fasting and it has not worked for you, I would say it's more of what you are doing rather than you not being able to do it. I can guarantee you can do it without question. I know for a fact you can do it. What you have to realize though, is that you don't actually need calories in the morning. You might think you do. You actually don't to function. However, your brain is used to you eating calories. And so whenever you don't, it's going to throw off a signal, which will cause extreme hunger and panic because it's like, oh, this guy's not getting the message. We're going to make you feel it. And it could really make your mind mental in a sense, making you think as though you need calories. But as long as you're eating regularly every day, you have more than enough calories to go 12 or 16 hours. So it's not that. That being said, the behavior adaptation is a real thing. So you have to be mindful of that, which is why I suggest starting with 12 hours. Next, every time you eat, prioritize protein and vegetables, hashtag PBV. In other words, as I mentioned here, where to start, I said, don't worry about whatever else you're doing. Do those things, not do those things, I don't care. Just focus on doing these things, right? So we're not cutting out carbs here, but I am saying, before you eat those carbs, eat your protein and vegetables first. Inside of the 10-week plan, I get into more of like portion sizes and serving sizes. I'm probably already talking too much as it is, so we're not going to dive into all of that. However, just for right now, think about at least having a fist size every time you eat of protein and half your plate of vegetables. And if you get hungry, increase your protein intake first, then you can increase your vegetables. All right, so this is where you would start if you are getting started. Then from there, so notice we're building upon the good place to start, getting into a better. And as you see, good, better is starting to become a theme. One of the things I talk about in the Define 10-week program, what a picture I showed you to begin with, is good, better, and best mindset. And that is so important, not just for eating, but everything in life, in that there's always a good way, there's always a better way, and there's always the best way. You may not be able to do the best way. Maybe you have too much going on in your life, your stress is too high. Maybe you are traveling. Maybe you have a lot of other things going on. You don't know where to start, whatever. It doesn't matter. There is something good that you can do, and just do that. All right, so building upon a good place into the better focus. I say better focus, that's just the next level up. So this is for those of you guys who are stuck with where you're at. Maybe you're doing a lot of the stuff we talked about at the base of the foundation. Well, the next level will be now you're starting to make some other changes. So we're cutting out 90% of processed foods, so packaged foods. We're cutting out water enhancers. We're cutting out soda. We're cutting out anything that is in a bag most often. Now, there are a lot more healthier options out there than there have been in the past, but still, you gotta be mindful of those things. I don't care if it says keto or paleo or gluten-free or vegan or raw, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean it's healthy. You're always gonna be better off eating whole foods, always. That said, and I should say, good supplementation. That is an important part. But in terms of like packaged stuff, yes, that is always should be an afterthought if possible. And so that's number one, just cut out processed stuff most of the time. Look, 2 words you should always make sure to never say are always and never. In other words, if you say 100% of the time, You are just lying to yourself. You are setting yourself up for failure. Self-sabotage lives within all of us. Self-sabotage wants you to set a plan that is so big and so restrictive that it knows you're not going to be able to follow it, so that you don't follow it, so that you quote unquote fail and end up worse than when you started. So it takes you a while to restart again. That is self-sabotage 101. So if you feel like you need to do this, you should do that, you could do this, stop. Time out. Just like Zach Morris back in Saved by the Bell. Time out. Stop it. Stop it. Let's get objective here. What are we thinking here? What makes sense, right? What makes sense for our life right now? Nothing 100%. I can tell you that, all right? Hit your recommended daily target. So again, I get more about this into the book itself, but simply put, you want to aim at least for 3 to 5 servings of protein per day, in addition to your collagen, your protein shake. You might be far from that. Here's a side effect of a slower metabolism is lack of hunger. When your hunger is low, when your metabolism is slow, you're not going to feel as though like you need to eat more. And so when that happens, you're eating less. I would never, ever tell you to force feed. Do never force feed. Now, it is easier to drink your calories than it is to eat your calories. Why supplementation helps us. However, be mindful of that. And so if you are full, that's okay. If you're following our program, your metabolism is going to increase. Our pod will increase your metabolism up to 39% every single time you use it. Our workouts are designed to increase your metabolism. There's a lot of ways to increase your metabolism outside of eating. By the way, intermittent fasting will help your body become more efficient at metabolizing. It will get better, I promise you. I don't care if you're going through menopause. I don't care if you were born with a slower metabolism. I don't care if you have hypothyroid. I mean, I do care, like empathetically, like those are challenges, 100. They are 100% challenges. But what I mean is they are not death sentences. Last year on CNN, one of the biggest news platforms, a doctor went on there to tell the world how obesity was a brain issue. Are you kidding? Is it a brain issue? Really? Why? Because she was pushing pharmaceuticals that she is a board member of and consultant of and the whole nine. It's not a brain issue. And look, this is not a talk about weight loss pills or injections, and there's a time and place for those. I'm not saying they're bad either. But to say that someone is going to be overweight because that's what they're born to be unless they take medicine is not just disgusting and gross, it's disempowering, which is horrible. We got enough problems in the world. People have enough mental things going on. To think that they can't get better just being them and doing some simple things is crazy. And I get it. I wasn't born with a slow metabolism. I never have struggled with weight, but I've helped thousands who have. And I'll tell you something, I don't care how slow your metabolism is, it can get better. Trust me. And it can get better without medicine. All right. Number 3, drink up to 2 super green shakes per day. What are super green shakes? You probably heard like Athletic Greens advertised. We have a really good Nutrition Frontier Greens here. Super Greens basically is flash frozen greens in a powdered form. Why is that important? Well, you're getting a ton of micronutrients. So macronutrients are your protein, fats, your carbohydrates. Those give us energy. Micronutrients indirectly give us energy. Micronutrients are a very important part of the equation, not oftentimes talked about. But another important part of greens is that they increase alkalinity. Another part of the issues we have with our stomach, and I say we because it is a problem. Like stomach issues is a real issue, is an epidemic, I would say, because most people you talk to in weight loss, and I talk to a lot of people every single day and have been doing it for a very long time, have stomach issues. Now, yes, prescription medications can cause some issues. Tylenols, ibuprofens, those can, for sure. We talked about the artificial sweeteners before, but those all sort of underlying, plus the typical American diet, cause us to have acidic systems. Inside of our body, there's acidity and there's alkalinity. It's a pH scale, just like in science, going on within our body. The further we are from alkalinity, the closer we are towards acidity. And look, there are things in our life that we have a lot of that we enjoy, sometimes aren't even unhealthy, that are very acidic. Coffee, tomatoes, a lot, things like that. But then, of course, a lot of unhealthy things. The point is, though, the more acidic your diet is, the more it's going to cause stomach issues, but it's also going to cause disruption in your gut, indigestion, bloat, acid reflux, a lot of other issues that's going to make it very hard for your body to become a fat-burning furnace, to increase your metabolism, which is what we want. So, Greens is an insurance policy to increase your alkalinity. Every single day, will have my water, then I'll have my coffee, then I'll have celery powder with marshmallow root powder, which both decrease the inflammation in your gut, also increase alkalinity. And then later on, I'll have a green shake as well, and sometimes two. I recommend it not just from what I just mentioned there, but also it's really good to have if you feel that energy drop midday, or if you get cravings at a certain time, to have a green shake. And by the way, if it tastes like a milkshake or like super sweet, probably not the best brand, because you're not drinking a green shake for enjoyment or food pleasure. You're drinking it for nutrients. You got to be mindful of that. So suck it up, Buttercup. All right, is what I can tell you. Ours here is a nice neutral. I don't drink ours here, to be honest with you, because it tastes a little like it's just enough sweet, but it's a little too sweet for me. I like mine to taste like grass, like just complete yucky grass. I just feel the vitality, right? It fires me up. I'm out of my mind. I understand that. And not everybody is. And so ours is a good in between, but it shouldn't taste super sweet. That's all I'm saying. Lastly, consistently rotate carbohydrates. People, I couldn't tell you how many times I hear, oh, when I do low carb, when I cut out carbs, it works. Does it? Does it work if you gain back the weight? It does not work. I'm not like minimizing your effort to cut out carbs, but let's face it, if you lost weight cutting out carbs and then gain weight back when you introduce carbs, it didn't work. It just probably caused you to gain more than you started with. First of all, your body needs carbohydrates most times. Look, there's a small part of the population who are very adverse of the carbohydrates, like very, very bad. Now, I'm not just talking about gluten, celiac people, but shy of that, most of us can and should have carbohydrates. Now, ultimately, if you got 20 pounds to lose, I would say even 10 pounds to lose, you probably don't need to have very much carbohydrates at all right? I like rotating for a few reasons. Number one, going back to that psychology 101 principle, which is whenever you cut something out of your diet, you're gonna want it more. And you don't wanna fight that. You're better off just having the thing than having it be a mental sort of conversation and dialogue ongoing. Should I have it? Should I not have it? I want it, blah, blah, blah. You know how it goes. So rotating carbohydrates gives you some of that, right? But also it keeps your metabolism guessing. So when you're rotating carbohydrates, your body is still learning and able to use the carbohydrates efficiently for energy. And again, you're gonna have a limited serving amount. I'll get the serving size of carbs in a second. But when you do cut out carbohydrates, your body gets more sensitive to breaking them down. So if you want your body to be better at breaking them down, definitely stay gluten-free, like with 100% gluten-free. I would highly recommend. That being said, you don't need to cut them out, all right? In terms of serving sizes, this is one of those good, better, and best, right? If you're someone who is having like carbs throughout the day, every day, then just start by cutting down to 1 serving of carb per day. Now, if that seems like insane, like crazy, like so hard you can't do, then cut it down to 1 serving of carb each meal. Now, 1 serving, let's just look at rice, for example. Most people will have a cup of rice, which is like sometimes almost 100 grams of carbohydrates, which is way too much in one meal. So 1 serving would be like a 1/4 cup, right? So that's when I say serving size of carbohydrates, that is very important. Like be mindful of the serving sizes you are consuming. But the point is, start reducing the carbohydrates. I walk you through exactly how to do that inside the program, but a simple progression of that would be cutting down to 1 serving per day. Okay, you start to do that, cool. Every other day, cut out carbs. You start doing that, cool. Then cut it down to a point where you're having a limited amount each week. Again, not cutting it out completely. And again, not on some perfect plan where like you can only have this amount of protein or carbohydrates this every single week or else. Don't worry about that, right? If you fall off, who gives a shit? Like legitimately, not the biggest deal in the world. If you have a meal that has a ton of carbohydrates and you're trying to follow a plan, like it does not matter. It is what you make it. But the thing is when we fall off a plan, we make it to be this big deal. And again, that's just self-sabotage. Get over it. Whoop-de-doo. Get back up. Who gives a shit? Tomorrow, start fresh. All good.
Give yourself grace. If you don't give yourself grace, nothing we're talking about and nothing you'll ever talk about when it comes to your body and your mind will ever make sense long-term in a way that's serving you and what you seek. Feeling good, looking good. That won't happen if you're so hard on yourself all the time, because even if you look really good, you won't be able to see it. Give yourself grace, please. And when you fall off, and I say when, it will happen, when you fall off, close the gap between you get back on. The problem is we let that go way too long. Just get right back on. And know that it's going to be up and down and all around, and that's part of the game. That's okay. Right back on. Start back at the bottom level. Build up from there. All right, so that is a better focus. And lastly, we're actually doing decent on time. I'm shocked. Is level 3 is level up. So you see, we're building on good. We're building on better. And we're going to best results. So here, now we're meal prepping. Notice how we've not talked about meal prepping at all? Just step back for a second. And again, there's no shame in the game. I'm not calling anybody out. And look, I've written programs like this. What tends to happen when we get motivated is all right, well, most people, let's just say in December and the end of November, are eating whatever they want, a lot of processed foods, a lot of dinner, a lot of parties, out, not cooking at all. But then January, all of a sudden in January, there's something magical about January where you have more time in your day that you're just going to meal prep everything. You really think that's going to be sustainable? Come on now. It ain't going to be. Look, yes, meal prepping is great, and I would love for everybody to meal prep. But I'm telling you, don't focus on it to start. You don't need to. And I've been on the extreme of meal prep. When I'm in bodybuilding prep, which is a part-time job, basically, I'm meal prepping hours a day. I would never suggest that to anybody unless you're competing. I would say when you're at a point where you need to optimize and want to optimize, that is when you should consistently meal prep. But until then, don't worry about it. And when you meal prep, find the right cadence for yourself. Whether that's Sunday for the rest of the day, whether that's hiring somebody, whether that's buying prepared food that is not loaded with shit. Be mindful of that. A lot of prepared food is loaded with sodium and nitrates and nitrites and a lot of other stuff. Or the most simple way you can meal prep. Whenever you cook, and if you're not cooking at all right now, set a goal for once a week. You can do that. I know you can. When you do, cook 2 to 3 times more than what you would normally. Put those into Tupperware, put them in your fridge. Bada boom, bada bing, you have meal prepped without any extra effort. Just cooking more. It's very simple. You can do it. All I'm saying, though, is don't start thinking that you're going to do that every single time, because it's just not going to be a sustainable way to get started. So meal prep weekly is a part of leveling up. Next thing is 24-hour bone broth fast or fruit fast 1 to 4 times a week. So the reason for these extended fasts are that it gives your body all the benefits you talked about in intermittent fasting. It just magnifies significantly. There's a lot of mental benefit as well, but it enhances those benefits of resting your internal organs, of burning off extra calories, of making your body more efficient at breaking food down, of burning. Fruit fast, very simple. Drink half your body weight in ounces of water per day. Have 1 to 2 electrolytes per day. Focus on apples and berries. It could be frozen, could be fresh, doesn't matter. But throughout the day, as you're hungry, eat fruit. Simple. That's all you do. That's it. You can do it. I guarantee you. I've had so many people do it. You can do it too if you want. Bone broth fast. Have 1 to 2 cups of bone broth throughout the day. As you're hungry, add a little bit of sea salt in there, and that's it. Drink half your body weight in ounces of water per day for 24 hours. Break both fasts with a meal that's mostly protein and vegetables. That's it. Again, don't start there. If you're looking to just get started, don't start there. You don't need to. Buy organic fruits and vegetables. This does matter. When you get to that point, I've been meaning and I'm wanting to create a video on these assholes who are talking about how you have to drink a certain type of water or else you're dead. Because that's I'm not debating that what they're talking about is not a better solution, but the idea that everybody's going to do that or needs to do that is just insane. And what it can do is make you feel like, as someone who just wants to be healthier, who has enough things going on in their life, It can make you feel like shit because you're like, I can't do that. How the hell am I going to drink this type of water with this, that? It's crazy. And that's why it's such a tough time to lose weight. It is the hardest time ever to lose weight in the history of the world because we're coming off of COVID, which is a shit show, as we all know. There's more stress in the world than there's ever been, and increasingly every week. If you're someone who is dealing with those things, like all of us, plus menopause, plus sarcopenia, plus an injury, plus other life things, then you factor in mainstream media pushing that you should have medical assistance. And again, I'm not saying there's not a place for it, but the fact that you need to have it is not true or accurate. You have an abundance of information all the time. What do you believe? Who knows? What's right? What's wrong? It's very hard. And so when you hear people talking extremes, tune them out. You don't need that information. All right? And that's what I'm saying with organics. It's like, yes, it is good to do, right? There are chemicals in our foods. But don't be worried about that if you're on a very strict budget, and you're just trying to get healthier. Like, start where you're at. I said it in the last slide, but start with where you're at. It's the most important thing. Now, one more thing that wasn't talked about that is, well, there's a lot of things that were not talked about that are in the book. And if you guys do not, well, I'm assuming everybody here follows me. Otherwise, how would you be here? But stay focused, stay tuned in because more information on the book will come out soon. But what I was referring to, alcohol. It's not on any of this, but it does not mean it's not part of the plan. Like, obviously, if you cut out alcohol, you're going to lose more weight. No shit, Sherlock, right? Like, you knew that. That said, I'm not here to tell you you should. Because, look, if you got a drinking problem, 100%, like, get that checked out. Get the help you need. That's a serious thing. But if you are in control of your alcohol, but you're drinking regularly every night, casually even, to go from 0 to 60 is not going to be sustainable. And yeah, you can do dry January. I think that's a good idea. I think it's good because it makes you sacrifice. It shows you you have willpower, which I already knew you had. And you can lose some weight, and that's great. But what happens February 1st? What about February 15th? What about February 27th? Or 28th, the leap year this year? My mom was born on a leap year. What happens then? You've gained back more weight because you stopped drinking alcohol in January, and then you felt like you had to catch up in February, and that's good and healthy. But again, I'm not saying dry January is a bad thing. I'm simply saying this. Don't feel like you have to cut it out completely. Instead, set an allowance. So if you're drinking every single night, 2 glasses a night, cut down to 1 glass a night. If you're drinking 1 glass every night, cut down to every other night. Works perfectly with our laser lipo treatments because your system is processing out all the excess you lose from our treatments. So when we highly recommend when you do your treatments, you don't have any carbs or alcohol because it slows down the process. But set an allowance and work within that. Don't feel like you got to cut it out completely. That said, don't be drinking sugary shit. Don't. Like, I'm saying, hey, you can drink alcohol. Meet me halfway. All right, get away with sugary shit. Beer. I don't care how much you love it. It's going to make you keep belly fat. And it can really mess with your sugar levels too. I've known healthy guys my age who have had insulin issues as a result of microbrews. And these guys work out all the time. But the issue was beer. You got to be careful. You have whatever the hell you want to have. I'm just here to tell you, I wouldn't recommend it. Better ways to drink. Red wine, champagne. I like Casamigos, tequila, clear tequila, vodka, Tito's, vodka with water or club soda. Keep it clear. Keep the sugar away. I also love, when I do drink, to mix in, to use 100% aloe vera. So like no added sugar, like aloe vera juice, but no added sugar. Organic aloe vera juice. Because that's 100% alkaline. Alcohol is very acidic, helps balance it out. So that's main things that I wanted to talk about to you guys. I hope it was beneficial.
Thanks for tuning in to That Was Yesterday with me, Joe Carabase. And remember, every step forward is progress. We'll catch you next time. And in the meantime, if you found any value from this episode, please share with friends and go ahead and give us a 5-star review. I appreciate you. Talk to you soon.